Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Military Spouse to Millionaire. Today, we are going to talk about the biggest scam in the military community. Service members, you are being scammed. You are being scammed, and more importantly, you're being robbed. And I would say 99% of the time, you are 100% complicit in being robbed and being scammed. I am talking about the fact that housing allowance went up. Let's talk specifically E1 through E6. Housing allowance went up almost $200 a month in 2025 for these pay grades. Congratulations. That is very exciting and that's very well deserved. However, if you live on post, they're taking all your money. This is what prompted this episode because I did have this on my itinerary to make this episode, but I'm making it now because of a message I got yesterday from a past client of mine who was kind enough to send me a screenshot. If you're watching this, I'll put it here. If you're just listening, I'll read the message to you. The comment is from one of the spouse pages and says, "Am I the only one who's confused on how on-base housing raised their rent as soon as we got a pay increase? They are literally stealing 100% of everyone's pay increase because we can afford it, in quotes. I should have listened to all the negative comments about the on-post housing office and went off base." To which my client also said to me, "Thank you for telling us 2 years ago to buy a house." This is so rewarding, so validating, so wonderful. This is up there with when people who don't buy houses message me when they're leaving the island and know friends who bought houses and say to me, "Damn, we wish we just would have bought a house. We wish we weren't scared. We wish we would have listened to you." Because it really is a travesty. To put it in perspective, if you are E1 through E6 and you're just getting here and you're going to live on post, you're going to be paying $7,000 more during your 3 years here than the people before you. If you're living on post now and you're in an on-post house, they are raising the rent to match your housing allowance because that's what you get for housing. And they are not giving you anything for it. I need you all to stop and think about that for a second. If you went anywhere else in the world for anything and you knew yesterday it was this price, and then you came back today and it was substantially more, and that thing, whatever the thing is, didn't change. It didn't get any better. It didn't get any more special. It doesn't have any more bells and whistles. It didn't change. Most people would be like, "That's a shitty deal. I'm not doing that. Why would I pay more for something today than yesterday?" That's exactly what's happening. You're still living likely in the same shitty on-post house with the bugs and the mold and the power outages constantly, and you can't turn your air conditioning to what temperature you want because it's regulated, and the jet fuel in the water, and all the other things that you deal with on post, solar panels that are literally so rusted that I don't know that UV light can get through them. You're still dealing with all of those things, and now you're paying $200 a month for it more than you were in November. It doesn't pass the common sense test. Make it make sense to me. It is crazy. And you know what? Renters, you're not exempt from this tangent either because, unfortunately, a lot of landlords, when housing allowance goes up in a military-heavy area, they will raise rents. Now, rents do go up kind of year over year, most years anyways. I, as a landlord, do not do rent increases every year, but absolutely over 10, 12 years of owning a home, absolutely, I will do rent increases, not specifically to gouge for BAH increases, but a lot of landlords will because they can, because you're sort of at their mercy and they know what you're getting for housing. So if you're renting, guess what? When your lease is up, I bet your rent is going to go up, and I bet it's going to go up close to $150 to $200 because that's what landlords know you're getting extra right now. And the same logic applies. What are you getting for that money? You need to pay attention. I heard a quote the other day from, her name is Cody Sanchez, and she wrote a book called Main Street Millionaire. She's wonderful. Like if I could, I'm not like a big like influencer, like I'm on TikTok for professional reasons, but I don't like follow a lot of people or like consume a lot of TikTok as far as like influencers go. If there was one influencer I could meet in person, it would be her. She keeps it real. She keeps it legit. She literally is so inspiring. Cody Sanchez, Main Street Millionaire. Just the mindset and the outlook she has about building wealth lines up so fundamentally with my core and what I'm trying to get out there to the military community. And she said, money is a cruel mistress. If you don't pay attention to her, she will leave you. Let that sink in for a second. If you don't pay attention to your money, it's going to be gone, is basically what she's saying. And I don't think this is like an original quote from her. I think in the interview I was watching, she was talking about advice someone gave her. So I apologize. I don't know who like originally said that quote, but it doesn't matter who said it originally. It is so damn true. If you're not watching or you don't care about where your money's going, it's going to be gone. It's going to leave you because you're not paying attention to it. And so if you're on post right now, if you're living in on-base housing and you're like, well, they're taking $200 more, that's just the way it is. Clearly not all of you are because someone posted a comment about how outraged they are about it. But what are they doing? What are they doing about it? Are they going to move off post? Probably not, because they might not have enough time here to own a house now and for it to be worth it. So it's just really fundamentally important that we think about these things. And I know I talk a lot about the monetary benefits of home ownership and investing in yourself. The podcast is called Military Spouse to Millionaire, guys. This should not be a surprise. There are non-monetary benefits to home ownership, like being able to renovate, being able to force more appreciation. Quite frankly, just coming home to a house that I know is mine and I'm not paying for someone else's property feels pretty damn nice. But the financial aspect is something that I prominently talk about because I would not be in the position that I am in life. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have been able to build this business. I have built this business on the back of my personal experiences. Clayton and I buying and selling homes for the last 15 years, us selling our two of our three houses at the time in Colorado and making $100,000 is what prompted me to get into real estate and build this business in the first place. And if we didn't have our rental properties and the passive income they provide us and the generational wealth that we've been able to put into place for our children, that's what it's about. There is a difference between being wealthy and being rich. When you're wealthy, it's going to extend past your life. Our properties are in trust for our children. If something should happen to us, they are going to have rental properties. And if we have taught them well, which hopefully we have, then they're going to acquire. I mean, I know for sure, at least our daughter, she said to me when she went off to her first duty station, "Don't worry, Mom, as soon as I have a VA loan, I'm going to buy a house." I was like, yes, I've never been more proud. But, if we've taught them right and taught them well, they won't shy away from making the scary investment, doing the scary thing, getting educated on home ownership, because inherently they were raised knowing and having reinforced the value of real estate and properties and those types of things as assets. And it's hard for a civilian. So like our son did not join the military. He would have to get a conventional loan. So let's play those two scenarios out. My son, my daughter, they're both here in Hawaii. Our son is here. as a civilian, wants to buy a $500,000 house. Our daughter is here, stationed at Hickam. She wants to buy a $500,000 property. Our son, if he wants to get a conventional loan and put 20% down, is going to have to come up with $100,000 to put down, which is a huge barrier to entry. Our daughter, because she serves our country and has access to the VA loan, only has to put down her closing costs and earnest money, which can go towards her closing costs. She does not have to put down a down payment. She puts down zero. He puts down $100,000 and still has to pay for his closing costs and deposit earnest money, which can go towards his closing costs. Unless he gets seller's credit, unless either one of them gets seller's credit to cover the closing costs, but that's really getting in the weeds. And I talk about that in other podcast episodes, using seller's credits for your closing costs, which is an option and you definitely should consider doing, but I digress, not the point of this podcast. Because you are serving our country, you have this cheat code to be able to invest in one of the areas in the United States that gets some of the best consistent property appreciation. Over the last 38 years, we see almost 5% property appreciation, which means, hypothetically, a $500,000 townhouse at 5% appreciation is making you $25,000 a year or $75,000 over the course of 3 years. And that's not including what you would pay down in the mortgage. $75,000 is a substantial amount of appreciation and potential money in your pocket. But even if you want to catastrophize and say, Kendra, you can't guarantee me that, you're right, 100% right. I cannot. If I had that sort of ability, I'd be in Vegas doing very well, doing better even than I am now. But I can tell you that we, in the last 10, 15 years, have never had 2 back-to-back years of market losses, which means 2 out of the 3 years that you live here, you're going to see gains. I can tell you that there are years that we see more than 5% appreciation, but let's play catastrophize. Let's play the catastrophe game. $75,000 as a baseline. Let's pretend we only see half of average appreciation during your time here. That's still $35,000-ish. Let's cut that $35,000 in half again. $17,000. Okay. Let's catastrophize some more. Cut that in half. You're still making $8,000-ish. Cut that in half again. You're still making $4,000. And do you understand almost the lunacy of cutting it in half, cutting it in half, cutting it in half? Like, that is almost to the point of being unrealistic in our market. But at the end of the day, at the end of the catastrophe, most people that I talk to are nervous about buying houses because they don't want to lose money. It's not about, I won't make any money. They don't want to lose money. So looking at it through that lens of, okay, in just average appreciation on an average price townhome, you're potentially going to have $75,000 of appreciation. Again, that's not even including what you've paid down on the mortgage, because you're not going to owe $500,000 when you go to sell it in 3 years. Even if you cut it in half, cut it in half, cut it in half. Let's cut it in half one last time. And let's say that you make no money. You own a home here for 3 years and you break even. I want someone out there on the World Wide Web to comment. Constructive comments. If I see any bullshit comments or you say anything dumb, I'm going to delete your shit. So just save me some time. Don't say anything dumb. I'm here for constructive comments. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to educate. I'm here to help. I'm not here to listen to anybody who just wants to get on the internet and sound like a badass. So constructive comments only. I want someone out there to tell me, if you bought a house and owned a house and lived in it and controlled your own environment and could change things that you wanted, and you left here and you made no money. You made no money. How is that any different or worse than if you had lived on post or if you had rented. What I mean by that is if you rent or if you live on post, in my mind, the only fundamental difference is with those two options, you are guaranteed to make nothing. It's a guarantee. There's not very many guarantees in life. Death, taxes, and renting and living on post, earning you no money. Those are the three guarantees that we have in life. If you own a home, you statistically stand a very good chance of making some sort of return, getting something back for that money, even if it's a little bit. But odds are it's going to be more than a little bit. Even if you own a home here and you leave and you've only made $30,000, are you really going to be mad about that if you spend your same tax-free BAH on a home of your own and make $30,000 versus renting or living on post and being guaranteed to make nothing? It just seems like such an easy option. It seems like such an easy answer. When you look at the numbers and you're educated, people very rarely can give me reasons why renting or living on post are better options. We will quickly unpack the different housing options. So buying, renting, living on post obviously are your three options. I will say that I understand and honestly feel a little bit sorry for people who have no choice but to live on post. I know you're out there, and this podcast is never meant to be a shot at people who maybe their family size is just so large that, you know, living off post in smaller homes isn't an option. I will give it to on post housing. The one thing that they have over off post houses that you can buy is the square footage. If you have a very large family and maybe you're lower enlisted, I get it. Like I understand. I'm not trying to say that 7 people should live in one 900 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath property. I get it. But I also think that those families don't make up the bulk of people who are kind of considering home buying in the first place, because they inherently know, hey, we have a larger family, you know, this, that, and the other. And there are people that just unfortunately have maybe had some credit hiccups that they're still recovering from and don't financially qualify to buy a house. And you don't have a choice but to live on post. And I am definitely very sorry for all of you guys that you're not in this moment at a position to invest in yourself. But I would also say that listening to things like this and getting that message into your subconscious, I really hope helps you to keep your eye on the prize, to overcome whatever obstacles you might be facing so that you can eventually get to a point where you can be investing in yourself, you know, and that's something attainable. That's something you can work towards, but not if you, like Cody Sanchez says, if you don't pay attention to your money, if you're not mindful about that goal, if you're not thinking about where it's going, it's going to leave you and you're never going to be able to start investing in yourself. So when I talk to people about the 3 housing options, buying, renting, living on post housing does kind of have us on the square footage. But in my opinion, knowing that even an E1, people coming here from AIT and tech school getting $3,200 a month in BAH, which is $115,000 over the course of 3 years. That is such a substantial amount of money. And that's if BAH doesn't go up. Getting more square footage, in my opinion, is not worth $115,000. I understand that parting with material possessions can seem stressful and difficult, and aside from the very rare occasions where it's, you know, family keepsakes, or like we have this giant, huge, heavy, beautiful wooden bench chest thing that Clayton's grandfather like hand carved way back in the day. And it's big. It's big and it's heavy and it, whatever. Obviously, that is not something we would part with to buy a home. We would just have to find somewhere to put it. So with the exception of like very special, like family type stuff or like really special pieces. And I say this all the time, that 10-foot sectional, that 8-foot dining table, that king size bed frame that is literally like gargantuan. You guys, those are not appreciating assets. Those are never going to make you any money. If you are living on post because you wanted to keep your sectional and your dining table, you, in my opinion, need to think about your priorities because you're prioritizing something that is losing value daily in lieu of getting an appreciating asset that will net you some sort of profit. And that is a fundamental shift in thinking. Sometimes we have to let go of the things that are not financially going to get us gains to make the long-term, short-term sacrifice, long-term gain. And I preach that and I practice what I preach. I talk about it all the time on this podcast. I came from a 3,200 square foot house in Colorado. We had 2 living rooms. We had 4 bedrooms. We had the big 8-foot dining table with the captain's chairs. We had a fully finished basement where we had a full gym and all the things on half an acre. We came here, we paid $230,000 for that house. We came here, we paid $660,000 for a house that was barely 1,400 square feet. I was sick. I was so sick I made Clayton take me on post to look at houses. I am not kidding you. Listen to episode 1 of this podcast. I tell you the whole story. I get it. I understand. However, we owned that house for 2.5 years and made almost $70,000. I don't care how nice your couch is. It's never going to make you $70,000. And we were then able to leverage that profit into our next investment property, which was a foreclosure that we bought, gutted. We bought it for cheap. We bought it for like $630,000. We spent 2 years, really 18 months, really renovating it. It was COVID. Things were a little slower. I can get into that on a different episode if you want. We owned it for 2 years, 2 years and 1 day. We bought it for $630,000. We sold it for $1.45 million. We made $800,000 on that one deal. And I'm not expecting everybody out there to do that big of a thing. We've been buying and selling houses for 15 years, less than, but we had been buying and selling houses for a decade. Even if you don't do something that big, even if we had just owned the home here, and I will also say we owned a home during 2017, 2018, and sold it in January of 2019, so 2.5 years. We owned that house because we bought it in July of 2017. It was before COVID. These aren't like COVID numbers. These aren't inflated like, oh, you sold your house during 2021. Of course you made money. No, this was pre-COVID. We made all that money. Even if we had just made that money and gone back to the mainland, that money would have gone a hell of a long way back in Colorado or in Texas or in Georgia or wherever you're headed to next to continue making those investments. We could have taken that money, gone to Colorado, bought a duplex, bought a fourplex, continued our investment journey. So I get it. I get that parting with your material goods can seem, not worth it or stressful or hard, but you have to have that mental shift of making the short-term sacrifice for the long-term gain. And you should know going into it, all of you who are listening to this podcast, who are coming to this island, I'm telling you now, shit here is small. Don't bring a ton of stuff. Leave it in storage on that end or be prepared to get a storage unit here. Don't say that no one told you or you didn't know that houses here are small. Houses here are small. We're on an island. We don't have unlimited land. We are not Texas. We can't just clear a field and build 200 more houses. So yes, while on-post housing may have us kind of in a corner with the space issue, it's not so valuable that I think it's worth throwing away over $100,000 for. Same thing with renting. You can absolutely find rentals that are larger than the homes you would likely be able to buy. But again, if you're going to spend over $100,000 paying a mortgage, let it be your own. Pay your own mortgage. My rental property here in Hawaii is a perfect example of that. We have an Air Force person renting our place right now, and I tried to get him to buy. I tried to literally talk him out of renting my property and buying a house, and he really wants to rent, and that's fine. He can stay there the whole 3 years. I won't even raise his rent, because if he does, and even if I don't raise his rent, he is giving me $111,000 over the 3 years that he'd be there. He is paying down $111,000 of my mortgage because he didn't want to take the time or take the risk to buy his own property and invest that money paying down a mortgage of his own. Now he's paying down my mortgage. And I'm a nice landlord. I'm not raising the rent, but I could, and then he'd be paying me even more. I also want to just ever so briefly touch on the fact that with rentals here in Hawaii, if you have pets, it is a challenge, you guys. Like, Hawaii is not a pet-friendly place. So oftentimes people who start out wanting to rent, like say I talk to someone and they're like, hell no, we're not living on post. That's not an option, but we're going to rent. Eventually, a good chunk of those people end up coming to me and say, look, we can't find a place that lets us have our pets, especially large dogs, or if you have more than 2 animals. It's just very, very, very difficult to find places that will allow you to have pets here. And if they do allow you to have pets, they want to charge you a pet deposit, and they can charge you pet rent. And then it's even more expensive. So that's a very big hurdle. And then to add insult to injury, you have limited options, and then you're still paying someone else's mortgage. And then on top of that, the upfront cost of moving in to a rental is ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. It's the same as everywhere else. So standard practice is when you move into a rental, you pay 1 month's rent and a security deposit equal to 1 month's rent. That's pretty standard. In Colorado, on our rental properties there, one of the properties we have is only like $800 for the mortgage. So someone moving in needs $1,600. Easy day. My rental here, I rent for $3,100. So the Air Force guy who's renting my property gave me $6,200 just to move into my house. And then he's such a peach, he's going to pay my mortgage down $111,000 for me while he's living there. That's crazy. That's damn near the same amount as closing costs for a $500,000 home. And there's no seller's credit to cover the cost of that rental stuff. At least buying a house, I can probably get you seller's credit to cover your closing costs right now. So the upfront cost of renting is a bit much and is definitely comparable to buying, if not more. And then the pet stuff is really quite terrible. And then the rent increases. Same with on post. That all being said, I do want to touch ever so quickly on interest rates, because something that I hear from people like, I'm not buying now because interest rates. I want to put something in perspective for you. You marry the house, you date the interest rate. Interest rates, I'm not quoting interest rates. I'm not a mortgage broker, but I sleep next to one every night. And I'm telling you, this time last year, he was locking loans at 7%-ish. Right now, he's locking loans at 6%-ish. And that's just hearing him talk to clients and locking loans and talking to his business partner. They're literally on the other side of this wall right now working. Rates are going the right direction. Are they going in the right direction as fast as all of us would like? Hell no. They shot up fast. They're coming down slow. We just got to make peace with that. But if you get a house now, you get all these great benefits that the sellers, like concessions that sellers are giving. You're getting those benefits as a buyer, which is really uncommon here in Hawaii. So take advantage. But also, when the rates go down, you just refinance. You can just refinance and have a lower rate, but you bought at a time where the market was slower because of the interest rates, and you got these great benefits as a buyer. I think people who are buying in the last year, going into the first quarter of this year, those are going to be the people that we talk about in a few years, like we talk about the people who got 2 or 3% interest rates during COVID. You know how we're like, damn, those people that bought during COVID got that 2.5% interest rate. Damn, that's nice. In a few years, when the market is back to being like strongly a seller's market and you get no concessions as a buyer, we're going to look back and be like, damn, I'm so glad I bought a house when I did, because the sellers gave me $15,000 of credit and they bought down my interest rate, or they paid my closing cost, or they paid my maintenance fees in advance, or they paid off my credit card. In the future, looking back, we are going to be saying things like that about ourselves or about people we knew who bought houses now and got these level of concessions, because it's not something that's going to last forever. But with regards to interest rates, what I keep trying to say, and I keep sidetracking myself, I'm sorry. If you're renting or living on post and you're thinking that you're making a good decision by doing so to avoid high interest rates, I want you to understand that you are paying 100% interest, because you are just giving money away. You are paying 100% interest. You're paying someone else's mortgage, or you're giving that money back to the government. And sometimes you're even giving additional money back to the government or in rent, and you're not getting anything for that money. Think about where your money is going. If you have ambitions to be wealthy, to create generational wealth, to just, even if you don't want to do all that, even if you just want to build a healthy, stable, steady, comfortable life for your family, the VA loan and owning real estate is the cheat code. It is the way. 90% of wealthy Americans make their money through real estate. Somebody in my comment section tried to call me out and say, that's an old quote from blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what they said. And that may be true. It may be an old quote from somebody back in the day, but you can get on Google right now, grab your phone and Google how do most wealthy Americans make their money? How do most millionaires make their money? Real estate investments. You don't have to be a full-fledged investor. You don't have to have 12 properties. You can, at minimum, use your VA loan, which is a benefit that you as a service member earn. Use your benefit to your benefit. Use your VA loan as a cheat code for life, so you don't have to put $100,000 down on a property here, and invest that money in yourself. I just cannot overemphasize the shock that I feel for people who are living on post right now, who I wish I knew. I wish I knew the count of how many people lived on Schofield Barracks, like how many military families live on Wheeler Schofield. So I could do the math on, okay, say there's 25,000 families that live on Schofield times $200 a month. How much more is Island Palm community making off of service members that are still having to deal with all the same issues that they've been dealing with? And I want everyone out there to understand that I know, me as a realtor saying these things about on-post housing, I understand there's a demographic out there that is just rolling their eyes and she's saying those things because she's a realtor. You guys fact check me. You all have smartphones. Again, feel free to sound off in the comments as long as you're not saying anything ridiculous. And by ridiculous, I don't mean a difference of opinion than mine. Like, I'm up for a spirited debate, but be intelligent about what you say. We're not here for just dumb, off the cuff, comments that are not helpful or intellectually based. Just make it make sense to me. Like, why is that okay? How is that okay? Why are service members just laying down and being like, oh, I guess that's the way it is? It's just crazy to me that this is a common practice and that we as military families don't want better for ourselves, I guess. I hope this gives you some perspective, and I hope that it causes you to really think and focus and question where your money is going. What are you spending that money on? What are you getting? And why do you think it's okay to spend it in that way when there is a much better option? Albeit a little more scary. I get it. I get it. Home buying is scary and it's a risk. And you might have people in your world, in your life, in your leadership, really fear-mongering you against doing that. But I will also argue that making an investment of any kind is a risk. But I don't see the same sort of fear-mongering. Like if I were to go to somebody and say like, I'm going to put, $1,000 into this stock in the stock market. People aren't as quick to like jump up in arms and be like, oh my God, but you say you're going to use your tax-free housing allowance to buy a house in a market that is as strong and stable as ours. And people are immediately like sticker shock, right? Why does that scare you? You're not owning this house for 30 years. You're not paying off this house. You're not paying off the $500,000 house. The goal is to find a house that's within your housing allowance. Whether the house is $1 million or the house is $300,000, the price of the home shouldn't matter so much. It should matter if it's within your entitlements, which is always my goal for reference. It is always my goal to keep people shopping within their military entitlements because that's the tax-free money that we get for housing here. And again, it's just about getting over that way of thinking. You're getting a tax-free pool of money. You have 3 choices on how you spend it: buy, rent, live on post. The bottom line, the black and white for me, is buying is the only way that you're not just lighting that money on fire and rolling it down a fucking hill. It is the only way, even if you only get a little profit, you're still getting something for that money that you're spending regardless. The fundamental shift mentally that people make, that I help people make, that I'm hoping to help you make out there listening, watching, the fundamental shift in thinking about how you spend your BAH, how you invest, how you think about your money. I hope that this, even one person, I hope this sinks in and prompts you to reach out to me and take that baby step to say, okay, I understand that there's a better way to spend this BAH. Now, Kendra, why don't you tell me more about the market? Educate me on why it's not a scary thing to buy in Hawaii, to own a house, to sell a house, days on market, average let's talk interest rates, seller's credit. Let's have conversations about all those things to get you to the next baby step. So do your research, do your due diligence, scrutinize those other housing options just as hard as you're scrutinizing buying, and really evaluate all of your options. Think about your money. She's a cruel mistress. If you don't think about her, if you don't take care of her, she will leave you. And then what are you left with? You're left with less of an ability to take care of your family, to take care of yourself, to do things that you want. The endless things that you can do with whatever profit you make from owning a home here, it's not about buy a house or invest in real estate to become wealthy. It's about no matter what you choose to do with that money that you made from this investment, you're not going to have it if you don't make the investment first. And I hope that a shift changes and happens in your mind to let you realize that if at some point you don't start investing in yourself, that you are less likely to have the ability to care for yourself and care for others in a larger and very real way that can be super rewarding and super meaningful to not only yourself, but to your children, to your next generation, to your grandkids, to whomever. Set yourself up for success. Give yourself that chance. Okay, guys, I'm done. I promise. I swear. Thanks so much. Bye. Like, follow, subscribe. As always, I wouldn't have any of this if it weren't for all of you. Bye, guys.